Gentlemen, what if I told you that 97% of women in a recent study reached orgasm within just 6 minutes when their partner used one specific entry and thrusting technique? Not 15 minutes, not half an hour, 6 minutes, and the men in this study weren't in their 20s. Most were over 50, just like many of you. I know what you're thinking. That sounds too good to be true. You've probably spent years believing that declining sexual performance is inevitable with aging. Maybe your erections aren't as firm as they once were. Maybe intimacy has become less frequent because you're both frustrated with unsatisfying results. Maybe you've quietly accepted a version of your intimate life that feels like a shadow of what it once was, or what it could still be. But here's the truth most men never discover. The issue isn't your age, your testosterone, or even how hard your erections are. The real problem is technique. Specifically, how you enter and how you move once inside. Get this wrong and you'll leave her disappointed or uncomfortable. Get it right and she'll be initiating intimacy, pulling you back into the bedroom, thinking about you all day long. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes, a men's sex therapist who has spent years guiding thousands of couples toward deeper connection and genuinely fulfilling physical relationships. My work focuses specifically on helping men over 50 rediscover their confidence in the bedroom, not by chasing what youth once offered, but by developing something far more powerful: understanding. Today, I'm revealing the exact 5-step technique that makes female orgasm almost inevitable. Even if you've struggled with performance issues or it's been months or even years since she consistently reached climax. By the end of this video, you'll understand why men who master this technique often become better lovers after 50 than they ever were in their 30s. Now let's talk about the single biggest mistake men make. And it's one that I hear about in my practice more than almost any other: starting too hard, too fast, and too deep from the very beginning. You've seen this everywhere, in movies, in the kind of content that shapes how many men think intimacy is supposed to look. Penetration happens, and immediately it's aggressive and intense. You might assume that's what women want, because that's what gets portrayed as passionate and desirable. But here's what's actually happening inside her body that makes this approach uncomfortable and sometimes even painful. Women's bodies take significantly more time to warm up than yours. During arousal, specific physical changes must occur before her body is ready for deep penetration. Blood flow to her pelvic region needs to increase dramatically. Her vaginal canal lengthens through what's known as the tenting effect, expanding by 2 to 3 inches. Natural lubrication increases. The pelvic floor muscles relax and soften, and her cervix lifts away from the vaginal opening. These changes take 10 to 15 minutes. This isn't a switch that flips instantly. It is a gradual biological process, and respecting it changes everything. So when you start thrusting hard and deep immediately, you're asking her system to handle something it simply isn't ready for. The result is discomfort and sometimes real pain, and she might not tell you. She doesn't want to hurt your feelings. She feels uncomfortable speaking up. Or she's quietly concluded that this is just how sex is supposed to feel. That silent resignation is something I encounter in my work with couples all the time, and it breaks my heart every time because it is entirely preventable. This challenge is even more pronounced for men over 50. If you're concerned about maintaining your erection, you might feel pressure to rush, thinking you need to finish before losing hardness. But that urgency creates a negative cycle. She doesn't enjoy it. Intimacy becomes less frequent, your confidence erodes, and if your partner is also over 50, her body needs even more time. Hormonal changes mean less natural lubrication and longer arousal periods. The rushed approach simply doesn't work now. But here's what changes everything. When you start slow and give her body the time it needs to fully relax and open up, what would have been uncomfortable becomes intensely pleasurable. When you eventually build to deeper, harder movement, it feels incredible instead of painful. This isn't about being timid, it's about understanding how arousal works. Slow doesn't mean boring. Slow means strategic. And strategic, I have learned through years of working with couples, produces results that urgency never could. Before I walk you through exactly how to apply this, let me share the research behind what I'm teaching you, because this isn't opinion or intuition, it's science. A study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine analyzed over 1,000 couples, and found that women whose partners used varied tempo and clitoral stimulation during penetration were 3.2 times more likely to reach orgasm than those whose partners used only standard thrusting. Think about what that number means. Not slightly more likely, more than 3 times more likely. That is the difference between her rarely climaxing and climaxing almost every time. Research from the Kinsey Institute shows that only 18% of women can orgasm from penetration alone. But when clitoral stimulation is added during penetration, that number jumps to 76%. Most men are unknowingly ignoring the one element that would make orgasm consistently possible for their partners. Not because they don't care, but because no one ever told them. Now, let's move through each of the 5 techniques step by step. The first technique is the foundation for everything else. I call it the slow entry, and in my practice, I consider it entirely non-negotiable. When you first enter her, stay shallow, only 1 to 2 inches of depth initially. Move slowly and gently for 20 to 30 seconds before gradually increasing depth over the next 2 to 3 minutes. Here is the biology behind it. During arousal, blood flow increases to her pelvic region. Her vaginal canal lengthens through the tenting effect, expanding by 2 to 3 inches. Natural lubrication increases, and her cervix lifts away from the vaginal opening. If you've ever gone deep and she's pulled back in discomfort, that's often because her cervix hasn't yet completed its natural repositioning and you've made contact with it. That is uncomfortable, sometimes genuinely painful, and it communicates to her body, even if unintentionally, that this isn't a safe space to fully open up. The slow entry gives her body time to complete this natural process. Here is how to execute it. After 10 to 15 minutes of foreplay, which is essential and not optional, you're ready to begin penetration. Enter only 1 to 2 inches initially. Move slowly and gently, almost teasingly, for 20 to 30 seconds. Then pay close attention to her body language. Watch her breathing. It should deepen and become rhythmic, not shallow or held. If she's holding her breath, that's tension, a signal that her body hasn't fully relaxed yet. Watch the muscles in her abdomen and thighs. They should be softening, not tightening. Notice her movement. Is she pulling you closer? That's your green light. Is she staying still or subtly pulling back? Give her more time. Over the next 2 to 3 minutes, gradually increase depth, not all at once. After 30 seconds, move from 2 inches to 3 or 4. After another minute, perhaps half depth. By 2 to 3 minutes, you should be able to penetrate fully without any discomfort. This approach also helps you, particularly if you're managing erection concerns. Starting slow removes performance pressure. You're not thinking, I need to be fully hard right now. The reduced friction is also ideal for managing sensitivity. If you're more sensitive than you once were, which is entirely common after 50, this slow start gives you time to adjust without becoming overstimulated. In my practice, this single adjustment eliminates roughly 80% of the complaints I hear from women about not enjoying intercourse. That is how foundational it truly is. Now, let's talk about the technique that 99% of men completely overlook, the single most powerful tool for giving her an orgasm during penetration. And that technique is grinding. Most men focus exclusively on in and out thrusting. Yes, that stimulates internal nerve endings and the G-spot, but it almost entirely misses the most pleasure-rich part of female anatomy, the clitoris. Here is what grinding actually is. Instead of moving in and out, you stay deep inside her and press your body firmly against hers, creating controlled, deliberate pressure on her vaginal opening and clitoral area. This isn't aggressive. This is focused, intentional contact. Let me share an anatomy insight that will change the way you approach this entirely. When most people think about the clitoris, they picture the small external nub, but that visible part is just the tip of a much larger structure. The clitoris has 2 long internal legs, called the crura, that extend 3 to 4 in internally on either side of the vaginal opening. There are also vestibular bulbs, erectile tissue structures that surround the vaginal canal. The entire clitoral structure contains over 8,000 nerve endings. For comparison, the penis has approximately 4,000. When you grind, when you press your pubic bone against her body and create firm, sustained contact, you are not just stimulating that external nub. You are stimulating the entire clitoral structure, the internal legs, the vestibular bulbs, all 8,000 nerve endings, and this is why it matters so profoundly. 75% of women cannot orgasm from penetration alone. 3 out of 4 women need clitoral stimulation to reach climax. If you are only thrusting in and out, you are missing the most important component of her pleasure every single time. Here is how to grind properly. Once fully inserted, press your pubic bone firmly against hers. Maintain steady contact with her clitoral area. There are 3 main grinding patterns to explore. Circular grinding, keeping your pelvis pressed against hers and making small controlled circles. Rocking grinding, a forward and backward motion, almost like a gentle rocking chair. And pulsing grinding, staying deep and creating short rhythmic pulses without breaking contact. Try each pattern for 30 to 60 seconds and watch her reaction carefully. Does her breathing quicken? Does she begin moving with you or pulling you closer? Those are your signals that you found the right pattern. The best position for grinding is missionary, which provides maximum clitoral contact and allows you to control pressure with ease. To intensify the sensation, have her place her legs on your shoulders. This tilts her pelvis and creates even deeper pressure against her clitoral structure. Cowgirl is another excellent option, as it allows her to control the grinding angle herself and show you intuitively what feels best. Here's something that men over 50 particularly appreciate about this technique. Grinding is significantly less stimulating for you than hard, fast thrusting. If you're approaching climax too quickly, shift to grinding. You maintain her pleasure at a high level while giving yourself the time to cool down and regain control. It is genuinely a win for both of you. Now, let's explore a technique that amplifies pleasure through psychological principles. One that, when used correctly, can double or even triple the intensity of her experience. I call it the teasing rhythm. Here is the concept. During intimacy, when she is experiencing intense pleasure, her body naturally begins to adapt to that level of stimulation. But when you temporarily reduce that stimulation, when you pull back, you create a contrast that makes her body crave what you just took away. You are activating her desire at a neurological level. This is based on solid psychology. It is intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful forms of behavioral conditioning known to science. When a reward is given inconsistently, when it is taken away and given back, the brain's dopamine response is significantly stronger than when the reward is constant. The anticipation itself becomes intensely pleasurable. And that anticipation, layered on top of physical arousal, creates an experience of a completely different magnitude. Here's how it works in practice. A few minutes into penetration, after the slow entry and with grinding incorporated, you shift into a harder, faster rhythm that she's clearly enjoying. Her breathing picks up, she's vocalizing, her body is responding positively. Let her experience that intensity for 10 to 15 seconds, then pull back dramatically. Slow everything down, enter shallowly instead of deep, or switch back to slow, gentle grinding entirely. Change the intensity level completely. Watch what happens. She will squirm, she will try to pull you deeper. She may vocalize her frustration. Don't stop or make sounds of protest. That is exactly where you want her. Her body has entered what I call seeking mode, craving what you just gave her. After 10 to 15 seconds of slower, teasing movement, give it back to her. Return to that deeper, more intense rhythm. The pleasure hits her completely differently now because you took it away and made her want it. When it returns, the intensity is 2 to 3 times stronger. Her brain floods with dopamine. Her nerve endings are hypersensitive. You can repeat this pattern 3 to 4 times during roughly minutes 5 through 7 of penetration. Give intensity, take it away, give it back. Each cycle builds her arousal higher, creating waves of pleasure that compound upon each other. But here is what is absolutely critical. Do not use this technique when she is approaching orgasm. If you tease her when she is 30 seconds from finishing, she will be genuinely frustrated and not in a pleasurable way. She may lose the orgasm entirely and have to rebuild from a lower arousal level. The teasing rhythm works best in the earlier and middle stages. Use it to build arousal, but once she is clearly approaching climax, lock into a consistent rhythm and do not change a thing. The fourth technique addresses something most men never consider: tempo variation. Most men find one speed and maintain it for the entire experience. Here's the problem with that. When you thrust at the same tempo for an extended period, the experience becomes repetitive. And when something becomes repetitive, the nervous system adapts to it. This is genuine neurology. Nerve endings adjust to consistent stimulation patterns and become progressively less sensitive over time. Think about putting on a piece of clothing. You feel it distinctly against your skin in the first moments. After a few minutes, you no longer notice it. Your nerves have adapted. The exact same process occurs during intimacy. If you maintain the identical rhythm for 10 minutes straight, her body begins to tune it out. The stimulation doesn't disappear, but its impact diminishes. By varying your tempo deliberately, you keep her nerve endings responsive and her body fully engaged, rather than allowing it to settle into adaptation. When should you vary tempo? Let her responses and the natural flow of the experience guide you. Different positions lend themselves to different rhythms. Missionary often invites slower, more sensual movement, while other positions may call for something more energetic. Early in penetration, slower tends to be more effective. As arousal builds, you can increase speed and intensity. But once she is clearly approaching orgasm, lock into one consistent tempo and stay there without deviation. The key is not to overthink this. I'm not giving you a rigid formula to memorize and execute mechanically. The point is simply to avoid the trap of one monotonous, unchanging pattern. As long as you are naturally varying your approach based on the moment, the position, and her responses, both of you will experience something significantly richer. Now, we arrive at the fifth and final technique, and in many ways, the most important of all. You can know every physical technique I've described today, but if you aren't paying attention, if you aren't genuinely present and aware of how she is responding, none of it matters. This is the skill that makes everything else work. Paying attention means being fully present during intimacy, continuously aware of how her body reacts to what you are doing. You are not inside your own head, worrying about your erection or replaying the day's stresses. Your complete focus is on her and on the connection between you. What specifically are you watching for? First, her body movements. Is she pushing back into you, pulling you closer? Good signs. Is she staying still or subtly pulling back? Adjust. Second, her breathing. As arousal deepens, breathing becomes faster and fuller. Near orgasm, it may become rapid, or she may hold her breath just before climax. Third, her vocalizations. Moaning, gasping, sighing. As arousal builds, frequency and pitch increase. If she says, "Don't stop," or "right there," those are explicit instructions. Do exactly what you're doing and do not change anything. Fourth, muscle tension. Gripping hands, tensing thighs, curling toes, tightening abdomen, all signs of building arousal, approaching climax. Here is why men over 50 carry a genuine advantage with this skill. Younger men are often lost inside their own heads during intimacy, anxious about performance, running a constant internal commentary, which means they aren't actually present, but you have something they don't: experience, patience, the wisdom that intimacy isn't about proving anything, it's about connection. That mindset produces the kind of attentiveness that transforms a physical experience into something deeply meaningful, and it allows you to adapt in real time, responding to the person in front of you rather than mechanically repeating moves that may or may not apply. Now, let me show you how these 5 techniques flow together as one continuous escalating experience. You begin with 10 to 15 minutes of foreplay, essential, not optional. By penetration, she should already be well aroused. Minutes 10 through 12, the slow entry. Enter slowly at just 1 to 2 in. Move gently for 20 to 30 seconds, then gradually increase depth over 2 to 3 minutes. Minutes 12 through 14, grinding. Stay deep, press firmly against her, and try circular, rocking, or pulsing patterns. Find what makes her breathe faster or pull you closer and stay with it. Minutes 14 through 16, the teasing rhythm. Build to an intensity she's clearly responding to. Hold it for 10 to 15 seconds, then pull back dramatically. Watch her reach for you. Give it back. Repeat 3 or 4 times. Around minute 16 or 17, tempo variation. Shift naturally between grinding, faster movement, and slower deep strokes based on her responses. Around minute 17 to 20, she begins showing clear signs of approaching orgasm. Rapid breathing, increasing vocalizations, tensing muscles, don't stop, or right there. Lock in whatever you're doing, do not change a thing. Maintaining steady rhythm while keeping pressure on her clitoral area provides dual stimulation, internal and external simultaneously. That combination is what tips most women into orgasm, Within 2 to 4 minutes of consistent stimulation, most women will climax. And throughout this entire timeline, you are applying Technique 5, paying attention, watching, listening, and responding with presence. Before you apply these techniques, let me be direct about 3 critical mistakes that can undermine everything I've just taught you. Mistake number 1, starting too fast and too deep. Men who feel anxious about their erections sometimes skip the slow entry entirely. Her body isn't ready. Discomfort results, her arousal drops, and orgasm becomes significantly less likely. Always begin with technique 1. It is non-negotiable. Mistake number 2, changing technique right before her orgasm. You're doing everything right. She is 30 seconds from climax. Then, caught up in the moment, you speed up or alter your rhythm and she loses it. Female orgasm requires consistency. Once her body has locked into the pattern that will take her there, any change disrupts that process. When she says, "Don't stop," she means it with absolute literalness. Honor that. Mistake number 3, ignoring the clitoris entirely. Most men focus solely on thrusting and never incorporate grinding or consistent clitoral contact. Given that the clitoris contains twice the nerve endings of the penis and is the primary source of orgasm for the majority of women, ignoring it means ignoring the most important element of her pleasure every single time. Incorporate grinding throughout the experience. Make clitoral contact a consistent part of what you do, not an afterthought. Avoid these 3 mistakes, and you are already ahead of the vast majority of men your partner has ever been with. Let me give you realistic expectations for when you begin applying this. The first time, don't expect perfection. Focus on mastering the slow entry and grinding first. Get comfortable with those 2 before adding the others. What she will notice immediately, even if your execution isn't flawless, is that you are more patient, more attentive, more present. That alone will improve the experience. In weeks 2 and 3, add the teasing rhythm. By then, slow entry and grinding will feel more natural, and you'll be reading her signals more clearly. By week 4 and beyond, this becomes your natural approach. Not a checklist, but an intuitive way of being with her. Her orgasm success rate at this point between 70 and 90% compared to 30 to 40% with standard thrusting. Average time to climax, 6 to 10 minutes after penetration compared to 15 to 20 or not at all. And intimacy frequency often increases naturally because when sex becomes consistently fulfilling, she becomes genuinely interested in initiating. One final element that makes everything work even better: emotional connection. Women are significantly more likely to reach orgasm when they feel genuinely emotionally connected to their partner. Her mind needs to feel safe, valued, and truly seen before her body can fully let go. When you combine these 5 techniques with genuine emotional presence, you create an experience that younger men simply cannot replicate. Your patience and emotional intelligence are not consolation prizes for what youth once offered. They are your greatest strengths. So, drop a comment below right now. Which of these 5 techniques surprised you most? Or, what is your biggest challenge in the bedroom after 50? I read every comment, and your responses genuinely guide the topics I explore in future videos. Remember, patience is not a weakness. It is your greatest advantage, and the man who understands that will always be the man she chooses. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes, and I'll see you in the next video.